Tuesdays, we check in with Cecil Hurt, the sports editor and columnist of the Tuscaloosa News. And I believe we may have Cecil en route to Columbia, South Carolina as we speak. Is that the case, Cecil?
That's correct. I'm in almost to Georgia, so it's not too much further.
Now, what's the route to Columbia, I guess? Do you go down through Macon and over?
You go to McFarland Boulevard, you take a left onto I-20, you stop
just
when
keep
you get
going.
to Columbia, South Carolina.
That's right. That's right. It had been a while since I made that trip. I made the trip over in 2010. I think most people who made that trip in 2010 to Columbia, South Carolina, forgot the way pretty soon after. Now, do you have
football trip again this fall?
Absolutely. Going back over. Sandstorm. All you want coming up for Alabama fans.
Absolutely. So, you just take 20. You go right through Augusta. I'm going to stop off and see if anybody wants to play 9. Surely they've got a day rate at the National, don't you think?
Absolutely. Probably you probably can get a repeat play rate if you want to play a few extra holes for $5 or something.
Rent some clubs.
Get you a chicken salad sandwich there at the clubhouse,
sure
little sweet tea or something.
I'm sure they'd be happy to see.
Hey, so Cecil, are you a big road trip music guy? Do you have to have a certain? I like to have my soundtrack sort of when I hit the road. That I can listen to. Do you have one of those dialed up for us today?
No, I listen to the radio a good bit. Just especially what people are talking about. Programs like yours around the South or some NPR.
We appreciate that.
No problem. I used to be the long distance back when it was cassette tapes. I'd have the mixtapes all ready to go. But now, you got your iPad and your Bluetooth, and you can play whatever you want to play. Just put your playlist. My playlist is about 7,000. I've got about 7,000 songs packed in there.
Wow!
But I don't have a specific playlist.
It's nice with the apps these days. You can get
it's unbelievable.
Get all the different radio stations like this one and stay plugged in. Now, as you make that trip over to Columbia, South Carolina for Alabama, South Carolina this evening, is there any reason why we should trust this Alabama team in this spot this late in the season?
I don't know. Other than the old, they're due theory. The line's pretty reasonable if you're looking at Alabama. It's 1.5. So just have to see. But they hadn't played great the last month. I thought they played okay against Vanderbilt in their last outing, better effort than they gave in their last home game. But South Carolina's 6-1 at home in the league and played pretty well. They just are having to dig out of a hole that they dug for themselves in December in their non-conference. So if Alabama shoots it well, South Carolina's not by any stretch a great team, but they're a good team, a well-coached team, have a great player in Chris Silva. So Alabama will have to shoot it well and not turn it over and sort of not do some of the things that they've characteristically done here in the last month.
Talk about the streamlined rotation we saw from Avery in the win over Vandy Saturday, Cecil. In your opinion, was it overdue? And looking forward, do you think it's something that he'll probably stick with, or is it anybody's guess at this point?
I thought it was good. It was really a 7-man rotation, and then Giddens just made it 8 and just gave Dante a few minutes to rest because otherwise, Dante's down there, and it'll be a factor tonight. He'll be down there against a bunch of grinders from South Carolina who crashed the offensive boards, and you just can't expect Dante to go 40 minutes in those situations. He played 34, which is pretty substantial performance time. Dejon, Kyra, if Dejan will play like he played against Vanderbilt, you could have him on the floor for 34 minutes. If his mind wanders, and his concentration level isn't good, sometimes you've got to get him out. I think you'll see 8 or 9 play. In general, they're better, certainly better offensively with Kyra and Mack and Petty. But, I'm not sure if they're right all the way to the point of Reese isn't going to play anymore, Galen Smith isn't going to play anymore, Junior isn't going to play anymore. So it's just going to be situational. But
Yeah.
I liked it. I think it's more manageable.
And I guess that was the surprise, the biggest surprise to come from that game Saturday night was that, as you outlined, no Galen Smith, no Alex Reese, no Avery Johnson Jr. That was a 96-game appearance streak that AJ had going into that game Saturday night that was snapped against the Commodores. So with that, how realistic, though, and you kind of touched on this, you've gone an entire season almost with playing 11 or even 12 guys, I guess, and now you're going to condense it to the point of asking guys like Dante Hall, assuming they can stay out of foul trouble, Dazon Ingram, some others, John Petty, to play 30-plus. Is that a concern in terms of stamina and kind of how you conditioned your team, Cecil, you think, at this point in the season?
It probably, again, with the exception of Dante, who's sort of the lonely big guy down there, if you don't sub for him a little bit, then I don't think the wing guys, you've got TV timeouts, so you've got 4 TV timeouts a half, you've got a halftime. I think Kyron needs to get a little stronger just with age. I think he'll be able to do it more capably in a year or two than he is now, but it shouldn't be a big factor. It shouldn't be a situation where guys just can't get up and down the floor. They're getting subbed out some. Herb is getting 15, 18 minutes of playing time, which helps. Riley's continuing to get some minutes. But I don't think it should be a big factor. I really don't. I mean, they can run. South Carolina's not going to press the tempo too hard on them. So I don't think it'll be a big factor.
Hey, Cecil certainly had a big news event. Forget about just sports news. A big news event over in Oxford, Mississippi over the weekend as 8 Ole Miss players took a knee during the national anthem before the Rebels matchup with Georgia in response to the pro-Confederacy groups that, let's face it, thinly veiled, or not even probably thinly veiled, could easily be perceived as sort of hate groups in this era. Was that unprecedented for college sports to see that? I don't recall. I don't recall seeing college athletes do that.
As far as I'm aware, I'm not aware of any other protests like that. Certainly at the SEC level or major conference level, I think that there were a scattering of guys who, for the most part, the kneeling before the football game is sort of off the table because the stands are on the field, the teams aren't on the field
right
when they play the national anthem. So would we have seen some of that in the fall? Don't know. But yeah, it's unusual protest, but it's an unusual context. I think in Oxford, I don't think that you can just reduce it to, these guys were being disrespectful. Some people can interpret it that way, but I think that they were trying to make their statement. I didn't have a problem with it. There may have been a better way to do it, but I think I understand what they were trying to do, and certainly the Ole Miss administration and the coaches have stood behind their players, as you would expect them to. So it was different. I think if you just saw the first picture and saw, 8 Ole Miss players kneeling during anthem, you might have one reaction, and then when you understood a little bit more about the context, you might have another.
Yeah, and it seemed like the players tried to make that abundantly clear in the aftermath. That this was specifically directed toward the protests that were attached to the Oxford community and the Ole Miss community.
Yeah, and it wasn't something Ole Miss invited or was
right.
coordinated by the college. It was just protesters, I guess, exercising their right to free speech, which they're entitled to do. But this was the way that the players chose to respond. So I think that again, it would have been interesting in the arena to see how fans and so forth reacted. But I think if you understood the total context, it's a little bit different than what Colin Kaepernick is protesting for him.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about this seemingly never-ending FBI situation with college basketball. Your level of uneasiness in Tucson and Baton Rouge upon reports from Yahoo.com of forthcoming subpoenas for Arizona head coach Sean Miller and LSU coach Will Wade, Cecil.
Well, it's certainly not something you want to have to do. And you're going to be if it reaches the point where you're being deposed or being put on a witness stand, you better know what the feds have and not perjure yourself. And if they ask you if you broke this rule, not that they're NCAA investigators, not that the NCAA is their main concern, but if they ask you, did you perform this act, and it's an act that would be a violation of NCAA rules, you better tell the truth about it. So we'll see. There's certainly been a lot of reporting that Sean Miller is on tape, that Will Wade is on tape, and so they'll need to be consistent with what they've been recorded as saying. So I don't know what they did or didn't do. I know that college basketball recruiting has been an object of speculation for many, many years. I know that when you're at a program that struggled, and all of a sudden you're getting 5-star players from around the country who are coming. Maybe they're coming for the etouffee. I don't know, but we'll find out more about that. See.
Yeah, when the feds come asking questions, they usually already know the answers, right, Cecil? It's not like the county sheriff's office or the city cops.
Yeah, they've probably got something that some trump card that they can play if they want to.
Something else we're talking with Cecil Hurt, the outstanding sports editor and columnist for the Tuscaloosa News, on a Tuesday edition of Southern Fried Sports, presented by Carty and Lloyd Attorneys at Law and our good friends at Mercedes-Benz of Tuscaloosa. In ways things have changed so much, thanks in large part to the emergence of social media. How much different is it coaching your kid at a Power 5 program today compared to, say, 25 or 26 years ago if you were Tubby Smith at Kentucky coaching Saul Smith at a high-profile situation like that in the early to mid-'90s, and fast forward to today, and maybe in a situation similar to that, like Avery Jr. at Alabama? How much different is it now, Cecil, in your opinion?
Probably, depending on the player, it's probably different. Some people really react to social media and really want to have an interchange with their or conversation, online conversation with critics, either people criticizing the dad or criticizing the son. I would advise people in that situation to hit that mute button, and resist the temptation. But different personalities respond different ways. So yeah, it's just one more thing. I'm sure that Pete Maravich got a lot of daddy's boy and all that yelled at him when he would go to the different arenas. And Pete would probably score 48 that night, which is so much. But Um, so in one sense, it's the same, but it's just like anything else. It's given a voice to people. You know, used to the only people who could do that were the ones who bought a ticket, sat in the stands, and yelled. You know,
Yeah.
now everybody can. You don't have to sit in the stands. You just sit on your couch and yell, and you get heard or can get heard. So yeah, I think that it's one more distraction in the case of Avery and Avery Jr. or you know any other father son combination out there that you have to be cautious of. And my advice, and I do it sometimes. You can. My job is more interactive, and I like to interact with people, but you can tell sometimes that people just are trying to provoke a reaction, and it's best just to hit the mute button and move on.
One of your favorite sporting events I know going on this week over at Legacy Arena in Birmingham, the state high school basketball tournament coming to a head there with the final four teams in the respective classifications. Is that your favorite playoff / tournament format, basketball, Cecil, maybe over football and baseball and the other sports? Is it truly your favorite?
Well, it is because you can go and if you want to spend an afternoon, spend a day. If you want to spend a day, you can see 8 or 10 teams. You get to see the girls, the young women play, which I think is a positive. You know, some people like the separate tournaments, but I think it's good exposure for. I think it's been really good exposure for the girls programs in Alabama. So I'll go possibly Wednesday and Thursday. There's good games both days. All the college coaches. There are a lot of college coaches there last night for Sacred Heart and Coosa, but Trendon Watson plays on Thursday morning. I think the big time. Probably the head coaches that are recruiting him will make an appearance for that. And there's some other prospects. There's other players, and most of the players that have eventually signed major college out of Alabama. Not all of them. Not Gerald Wallace, for instance, but a lot of them have played in the state tournament. Used to be in Tuscaloosa. You had an extra when it was all boys. You had 8 teams. You only have 4 classifications, so you get to see 8 teams. So you'd really get to see a lot of players. But even today, there are again there's Trendon Watford, there's Cam Woods, there's Vincent Valley, J.D. Davidson from Coosa Central. I think put on a show last night for several scouts, college scouts. So yeah, I really enjoy it, and again, I'm a big believer in prep sports, in our prep writers, prep coverage, because if it's not for high school sports, you're not going to have college sports. That's a little different today than it was 40 years ago, but I think it's still true.
Yeah, and you bring in all the different fan bases to that one building, and the people watching, outside of even the basketball, is the spirit and the atmosphere inside that building from 9 a.m. till late at night in some instances is just it's a great thing. Hey, Cecil, as we let you go here, another home and home added by Alabama football, this one with West Virginia joining what we've heard about Texas, Notre Dame. I remember when the Michigan State series, it never came off, was initially announced in terms of what it might have meant in relation to Nick Saban's plans for the future at Alabama. So I guess, seeing as how West Virginia is his home state, we might hear some of the same things in regards to the Mountaineers coming on in 2026 and 2027.
Yeah, Nick's hometown, where he played high school, Monongah, it's almost like Gordo to Tuscaloosa. That's about how far it is from Morgantown, about 30 miles. So it really is, whether he's sentimental about that or not, I hadn't spoken to him about it. But it really is a homecoming situation if that's how he chooses to look at it at age 74, which he's a young person in an older body anyway. So coaching to 74, 75 wouldn't surprise a lot of people if that's what he wants to do. So you can look at that and you can get 2 and 2, and maybe the answer is 4, and maybe the answer is 5. Maybe it doesn't have anything to do with anything, but he certainly has seemed enthusiastic about it. And of all the Power 5 opponents that they could have scheduled, which I like the opponent, I think it's fine. You don't know how they'll be. Don't know how Alabama will be that far down the road, but West Virginia, some years they're close to competing for the national championship. Some years not, but they can be, and I think Morgantown will be an interesting trip.
Yeah, the couches in Morgantown will want to be on alert for both those games, right?
Well,
in 2026.
It's a passionate fan base. Alabama played them in Atlanta in, I guess, 14, and it was fine. I think everybody enjoyed it. I think the fans enjoyed the interaction. So yeah, I think that's the kind of series I think that you'll look at more and more in the future. I'm still interested to see what they come up with for 24 and 25. There's a lot of interesting rumors floating around there, some of which involve home and home, some of which involve neutral. So we'll see how that turns out.
For now, though, a stretch of neutrals coming up, I guess, with Duke, Miami, and SC, right?
Yes. Atlanta, Dallas, Atlanta over the next 3 years.
And those big checks that are hard to turn away from, Cecil.
They are, and they're, I like to call them, they're easy checks, and that, it's not your cleanup crew that has to work, and your stadium that has to be functioning, and all you have to do is go and get in the hotel and play, come home, and cash a check. So there's some positives, but I think if you're, I've always been an advocate, as you know. If you're a merchant in Tuscaloosa, if you're a fan in Tuscaloosa, if you're a fan that hadn't ever been to away games at places like Notre Dame, Penn State, Oklahoma, it's a big part of college football. And Alabama's prominent enough in the college football world that they need to be participating in that kind of game.
No doubt about it. Agree wholeheartedly. Hey, Cecil, safe travels on the rest of that trip to Columbia, and we look forward to talking about it next week. Thanks, Cecil.
Okay. Thank you, Travis.